Yep, so I'm Paul Chenery. I'm the Quality Training and Transformation Manager at Nottingham, so I have some background in lean transformation and workflow, and obviously quality as well.
Okay, thank you, Paul. As we're all very much aware, gaining UKAS accreditation is an important step in the road to actually digitalising our workflows and making sure that we effectively can be report in confidence. Now, thanks to the sterling work that Paul, David and their quality control teams over at Nottingham have done, I'm delighted to say they were the first in PathLAKE Plus to actually be able to gain UKAS accreditation, and they've been kind enough to agree to this webinar to pass on that knowledge and those lessons learned to us so we can actually take that information away and help inform our own processes moving forward. Today we'll be starting with a half-an-hour presentation from David, and we'll be moving on to 10 minutes of questions. So I'll hand over to David.
Okay, tell me when you can see the screen.
I can see your screen, David.
Okay, so I'm going to give an overview of what the way we've approached gaining UKAS extension to scope for digital reporting, and Paul, who's done much of the work behind this, is going to fill in the detail with questions later on. So I think the first statement I'd make when thinking about the digital implementation is that it's not just a digital microscope. We're transforming the way we're going to deliver cellular pathology, and moving to digital reporting is, I see, just the first step in that road. So it's a road to continue changing and improving the way we deliver pathology, and ultimately bringing in image analysis and AI, etc. Nottingham procured via PathLAKE the Halo AP digital pathology platform with Hamamatsu scanners provided by Indica Labs. I'll give you an idea of the timeline of the project. So we kicked off in October 2020 in the midst of the pandemic, doing a procurement. So we spent about 3 months putting together a detailed specification, and then just over 3 months was taken up with the procurement itself, which was a mini competition run by HTA on behalf of PathLAKE. We signed a contract with Indica in May 2021, and the kit was installed through August and September 21. So scanners in first, then we had the IMS installed on our as a sandbox server, and then production server, and we had servers for image storage and all our other IT elements set up in that period. In October that year, we started doing validation and verification of the system. That was all the components, scanners, other hardware, and the other system and integration. And we'd concluded that in mid-December 21. We had a brief pause because it's never a good idea to do major change on the Christmas holidays. And we went live with reporting in the second week in January 2022 with one team, that was the team I work in, the Hematological Malignancy Diagnostic Service, going live with reporting and validation. Then they'd finished that by April, and then just after Easter, we started with the next team, which was the GI team. UKAS ETS was a key milestone that we had to achieve as part of the agreement we had with PathLAKE and Innovate UK, who funded this. And so we put our application in October 2022, and then we were inspected by UKAS in January, and had a positive outcome from that. Just to give a bit of background, I mean, this is sort of meat and drink to anybody who works in pathology, but our goal was to get accreditation to ISO 15189 standard for diagnostic reporting of digital pathology. And we realized right from the start that from the get-go, we had to start collecting data and evidence to support that application. And that's probably the strongest bit of advice I can give you all the way through this presentation. In terms of guidance on how to go about this, two documents come to mind. The first is the best practice recommendations, which David Sneeders on the call was one of the authors of, published in January 2018, And that I found a really useful document for advising us on the quality aspects of moving to digital reporting. And then that was supplemented by additional guidance issued in March 2020, really as the pandemic bit, and several of our colleagues had to self-isolate at home, and so many departments were bringing in digital reporting from home quite rapidly, and that gave some of the quality features you should do if you're bringing that in a quick way. And again, David was one of the authors of that. It fits into our standard quality management system and UKAS arrangements. So one of the key things is you've got to have solid governance arrangements for your digital implementation. Within the trust, we have a steering group sponsored by the medical director, chaired by the divisional director that we sit within, which is Cancer and Allied Services, and we have a weekly implementation meeting with a group that includes all the key stakeholders from both within pathology, but also from Trust ICT, finance. We had HR in there, so we got all our bases covered within the various groups, and we've got solid reporting mechanisms. And we've also had to report back through PathLAKE and Andrew and David to Innovate, who wanted to monitor how we're spending the money. Clearly, you've got to have a change diary and record what you're doing and what you're planning to do in there. Carry out risk assessments for everything you're doing, and validate and verify your equipment. Write standard operating procedures for everything, and train your staff and competency assess them. And one thing about the digital implementation is, because of pathologist validation, it's one of the few areas where we've got actually well documented competency assessments for pathologists prior to them undertaking the use of this system, which I think is fairly unique in cellular pathology. Then underpinning the rest of your quality management system is going to be an ongoing audit program and MDT discrepancy reviews, etc. So validation verification, the college guidance recommends that you've got to validate and verify all aspects of this, which is your slide scanning. Have you got enough capacity, integration, barcodes, recognition of barcodes, and how well you're detecting tissue, particularly faint tissues such as fatty tissue, lipomas, breast tissue, etc. And are your images in focus and of adequate resolution? And that's over a range of tissues. This is a schematic giving the way we've set our system up with Indica. So we have 5 scanners, 3 S360 high volume Hamamatsu scanners, 2 of which are in our main laboratory and 1 in the immunolaboratory, and then 2 S60 scanners which can also scan megaslides, and we've got 1 in the immunolab which we use for immunofluorescence. Our storage solution is a fast storage for streaming images, which is 60 days, and then cases are automatically backed up into our archive, which is on premises, and we've got an average retrieval time of about 90 seconds for a slide if it's been archived. We settled on 60 days. We originally had longer than that because it's most cases are through an MDT cycle in much less than 60 days. So we found that was optimum, and it reduced our cost quite considerably, and allowed us more archive costing. It's not possible to integrate directly between our IMS and our lab information system. The only thing that seems to integrate with our lab information system is the Vantage specimen tracking system. So the way we pull data from the limbs into our image management software is via Vantage, and we're limited to the data transfer that goes from the limbs into Vantage. When you're validating, you have to think about not just the individual elements, but the whole value chain, if you like. So if a case is on your limbs, you've got all the demographic information, you've got slide level information and metadata. That then passes into your specimen tracking middleware, and then onwards into your image management software. So you need to check that occurs reliably, and there are no missing elements or transposition of elements, and we validated that. Next step is your slides are scanned. and that's barcoded. So are your barcodes being read accurately? Are the slides being pulled into the right slots in your scanner? Are the images of sufficient quality? Are they in focus? And the servers that pull that store those images to be pulled in the IMS, are they robust, and have you got adequate backups? And then finally, pathologist workstations and monitors. In common with a lot of IMS, Halo is a browser-based system. So we've got laptop workstations so people can work both at home and in their offices, and so we check the whole value stream from end to end to make sure that it could be validated and verified properly. I mentioned a little earlier that one of the unique things about digital pathology is the amount of care we've taken about validating our consultant colleagues in this. I think the college guidance is actually pretty sort of solid, common sense, pragmatic approach, and it sees validation as a pathologist-led self-validation process where a pathologist works with a trainer, and the training has been done by other pathologists for pathologists. I'd say that's very important to do that in order to get engagement. We've aligned it with CPD, and certainly when I've been doing validation sessions with pathologists, I've encouraged them to record it in with their CPD folders at the college, and claim some points on reflection at various stages in their validation process. And we've record the validation on people's appraisal portfolios. We've developed a departmental SOP for pathologist validation that covers all elements of that. We've trained the trainers. In reality, I've done most of the training, and I think it's important that if you're clinical lead, you do quite a significant chunk of training with your colleagues. And the reason I say that is that in this kind of transformational change, communication is absolutely the key. And the most valuable and important form of communication is one-to-one, face-to-face verbal communication, because you can listen as well as talk, and so you can understand the issues that people have. So it's far more valuable than email or written communication. You've got to have that there as well, but one-to-one contact with all your colleagues, I'd say if you're leading this as a clinician, is invaluable, and it's important to try and cut the space to allow you to do that. And then we've documented the validation process. This is straight from the college guidance, just a schematic. So you have some skills training, a bit of practice with feedback. Stage 1 validation, which I'll describe in a little more detail shortly, and stage 2, and then a validation statement at the end of that, and ongoing monitoring. So stage 1, we've set up training sets for each subspecialty. Our department has 32 consultants, and it's very highly subspecialized. So we had to create sets for each subspecialty. And each pathologist reviews and records the diagnosis of each case on the digital image, immediately reviews the glass slides, and records diagnostic concordance or discordance on that case. And then at the end of that, meets with the trainer, discusses the results, any issues that there may have been either with the system or their ability to use it, or the hardware they've got, or the particular things that may be difficult in that subspecialty. And then that's recorded in the validation record. So what we've done is we set up template XLS files to do the stage 1 validation, which were loosely based on the college system. Because it's a browser-based system, you can embed a URL into these. So I wanted to make it easy for pathologists to use this. So if you click on case 1, it takes you directly to that image in the IMS, and so we try and give people a good experience from the start, that it's slick and easy to fill in. Enter your digital diagnosis, confidence rated 1 to 7. Has there been any change? If there has, specify, and what's the rate of confidence in glass, again on a Likert scale of 1 to 7. Following stage 1, again, my recommendation is to go straight onto stage 2. I think where I've seen people delay it, there's no benefit at all. You really want people to be building confidence about using the system as quickly as possible, and the more you use it, the more confidence you'll get, because you're developing that muscle memory from how to actually use the system. So this is live case reporting. The duration of number of cases agreed at the outset. Now the college recommend that. I'd say you need to be flexible about that. Usually it's 1 to 3 months. I've found that's more variable. Many people are through it in 1 or 2 months, but some people take longer, particularly if they've got a heavy clinical workload and they're concerned about being able to do all their work digitally and check the glass, and so they're just doing a proportion of their work digitally in the validation period, and that does extend it. My advice to people again is, if you're going to validate, just go for it. My experience is the people who do all their work digitally validate much more quickly and become more confident. So report digitally, check glass before authorization, and record in a spreadsheet in the way we did for stage 1, and review this regularly. And I tended to have a sort of informal chat every couple of weeks or so, how's it going, and then more formal meetings, perhaps once or twice during validation, depending on how things were going. This is part of my validation sheet for HemePath, which you can see started in January 22. When you're managing consultants, many find it a bit tedious to fill in paperwork. I think anybody who's managed a QMS with consultants finds some people hate using things like QPulse, but you've really just got to be persistent. Like, I just need you to collect the evidence on a basis. So what's your diagnosis, level of confidence? It doesn't take very long once you've got it got yourself set up with your XLS sheet on one screen and your digital system on the other. This is my validation statement for HemePath. I'd already done a fair bit of digital pathology prior to joining Nottingham, more or less full time when I retired, and so it recorded what training I had, what experience I had. I had agreed with my clinical director that I'd do a mini validation of about 150 cases or so in HemePath, given previous experience, and met with her, and she signed me off. Once I'd done 171 cases, you can see I had one discordance. I missed some amyloid in a follicular lymphoma, which I picked up only on the Congo red on the glass, actually. Once you've finished, so you've got your validation statement, so that person is now validated to report. But we were not UKAS accredited at this stage. So this was, as you can see, it was March 2022. So March 22. And so Paul set up an automatic canned report disclaimer that we put into each report for those of us that were reporting digitally but not checking the glass, just to say we'd reported digitally, but it was validated but not accredited. College recommends ongoing monitoring, but this is pretty much just business as usual. I mean, you make people aware of problem areas, which is mainly around small detection of small objects like microorganisms, sometimes detecting small foci of micromets in lymph nodes, etc., well documented as problems. But your normal audit processes go on, and we have an MDT discrepancy review with each one being recorded, and that's ongoing for picking things up. And these are discussed at appraisal. The lessons from validation so far are it requires time. Your productivity will go down initially. I know it seems a bit of a dumb statement. Each consultant is an individual, but you've got to accept that. So one size fits all, and failure to adapt can lead to real problems. You've got to suit your system to each individual. Each subspecialty has different issues. It's easy to adapt to biopsies. And as I say, tailor your approach to support each consultant. And the way we've approached it is this is about supporting colleagues through the biggest change in their professional careers, and trying to get them to feel confident and safe using it. We want to get to 100% digital reporting, or as close as possible for each individual. So we've got stage 1, which is really about familiarization. Stage 2 is about assurance and sign off. But you really want people to be at fluency, and fluency is achieved when you're as quick or quicker using digital. I'd say I'd certainly am quicker using digital than I am glass, largely because it's easier to navigate around the kind of complex cases I have with lots of immuno with digital, and I can compare immunostains directly. But at first you feel awkward. That varies from individual to individual. Then it gets easier, and then it becomes easy, and then it becomes just natural. But accept that this curve is more difficult for each individual, and you have to work with individuals during the validation process. Where we are now is all our consultants have completed stage 1 validation, all 32. 27 have completed stage 1 and have been signed off at least for the bulk of their reporting. I've got another 2 people due to be signed off in the next fortnight, so we should pass 90%. I'm hoping certainly by the end of July. Green is reporting digitally. A little bit about screen calibration. This is from the additional guidance issued in March by the college about what screens are acceptable. I know sort of colleagues in Leeds prefer the medical grade monitors, but they are considerably more expensive. We've gone for this mid option here, which is a very high quality 4K monitor. We've gone for 27 inches. Because that's what we tend to find is a bit easier given the distance you stand from the screen. People work both at home and at work. So the top here is my home in Grantham. It's where I am now, with a setup pretty much identical to the way I work at home. In the hospital. One of my colleagues, for a family emergency, had to travel unexpectedly to India and wanted to work from there. So we set up within a week, got a workstation, a monitor delivered, and she took a laptop with her and some peripherals, and was able to report from India for 2 weeks without any problem at all. We've not gone for using spiders to calibrate our monitors both at home and in work, and we use the Leeds point of use quality assurance tool. I'm not sure whether you can see this because this is a photograph of a photograph of a photograph, but if you can read those letters, your monitor, submit the answers, and you can get a token saying your monitor is of acceptable discrimination for reporting purposes, and that can then be stored. I think one thing I can't emphasize enough is that continual improvement is central to our digital pathology vision. Paul, who's on the call, is our quality training and transformation manager, has been a key member of the implementation team from the start, and quality is a standing agenda item on our weekly implementation group meeting. Paul and his deputy, Paul's had a long experience in improvement, but they've both been through Lean Six Sigma Black Belt training. And Paul and his team have started a lean transformation of cellular pathology with workflow redesign, 5S, and the other lean tools over the last year or so while we've been implementing digital. The other part of improvement is this is a relatively new technology, which means it's going to be changing and improving fast. So we work very closely with Indica Labs and give them feedback back on their product development, and have been beta testing any new products or changes to the product that they bring in. So we're very keen to influence that. This is an example of the work Paul and his team have been doing. This is our Lab QC desk, nicely 5S, as you can see, things marked off where slides, etc. will go. All our QC is done digitally by our lab staff now. So on to ETS. We had it in the diary for really from the beginning. We probably slipped it back 4 or 5 months, the application, because of we want to have a bit more confidence and more people reporting digitally before we applied. But we engaged with UKAS at the time of a full departmental visit in April 2022 to say, this is what we're doing. We showed them the team, and it was a real opportunity for the team that were working on this to just show their enthusiasm, the confidence they had in the system at that time. So it was not a surprise to UKAS that we were going to be coming through with an ETS later that year. Paul and his team communicated with the assessment manager and once we knew them, the identified technical assessor early. And once you've got your date for application sorted out, again, submit your evidence early and then ask, well, what do you think? Is there any more you'd like to see? Are there any gaps in the evidence? I'll not read through the list of evidence that we've given. Paul's got a more comprehensive list. This is just headings, which we'd be happy to share with colleagues. But that's what we submitted. And the outcome of the visit was a recommendation to add to scope, 0 non-conformances, which we were really very pleased with, and 1 recommendation, which was considering that separating out any errors due to digital from the other categories of error and discussing them separately in the quality report. So we highlighted any issues that were or could be caused by the digital system. So that's where we are now. Looking into the future, I think everybody sees AI as the thing that will cause further transformation of pathology. And that's, again, another big change for pathologists, because we need to move to a system where we've got contextually launched single system that's linked of our LIMS and Halo AP linked to our AI algorithms and to molecular diagnostics. The systems don't currently exist that allow us to do that, but we're working with our LIMS provider who are developing a system called View, which will allow us to launch Halo from within that and provide all the other contextual knowledge information we need to report. But again, this will all have to be validated and verified as part of a change in our reporting process. AI itself, and we'll be looking to bring our first AI algorithms into use later this year, opens a whole bunch of other questions, which I don't think have been fully considered as yet. But there needs to be a regulatory framework, not just CE-IVD or UKCA FDA approval, but how are we going to get these through UKAS accreditation? What evidence are they going to expect us to keep in terms of audit trails of any quantitative metrics and how they've been derived from digital images by AI systems? What kind of records we have there? Whether we need to keep the markup heat maps available for review later. The professional bodies are going to need some more best practice guidance, and we need to think about how we're going to train our colleagues going forward in how to assess and use image analysis and other AI tools. Can we develop that professional expertise locally and within our network to make sure we do this at high quality? And then probably the thing that's going to be the biggest challenge both for the regulatory framework and professional bodies is that in order to get NHS funding, the reality is in an environment where there is very little spare cash, we're probably going to have to move to some things being done by image analysis and not checked by a pathologist in the medium to long term, in order to make those business cases fly. And that's a huge challenge, both in terms of the professional guidance and bodies' opinions, but also how you can accredit that and assure quality within it. So if we're going to put this down to 3 key lessons that I'd say to people is build quality in from the start. You know you're going to have to apply for ETS, so schedule it in your project plan. You don't have to have it at the end of implementation when you've got everybody validated, but at which point are you going to apply? And it gives you a target to aim for. And collect the information right from the get-go that will help you to make it a relatively smooth process for this. just a final thanks to all our team at NUH who've been tremendous throughout this, and this work has been a fantastic multidisciplinary teamwork, both within CellPath but also within the wider trust. And Katie McKinley and Rob Turner from Indica and Hamamatsu, and clearly without Andrew and David's support, none of this would have happened. Right, so with that, any questions? I've sent a PDF of the presentation to Andrew. I'm happy for him to share with him, which has got Paul and my email addresses if you want anything that we can't cover in the talk. So thank you very much. That's the boring bit over with.
Thank you very much, Paul, and David, for all the hard work you've put into this. Cascading this information to the rest of the consortium and to other NHS trusts is invaluable. I'm sure it'll smooth out the deployment processes in the future. So overall, congratulations once again on all the hard work in achieving UKAS accreditation.